Some things in life are absolute perfection. While it's rare, you'll occasionally come across things that are so brilliantly designed that nothing could possibly be done to improve upon them, and to even try would be a fool's errand, much like this show. Right, Kevin? Kevin who writes the episode, me who reads it. Despite this unassailable truth, my parents inexplicably opted to have another child after I was born. Very nice, Kevster. But they aren't the only ones to make this mistake, nor are all unwanted sequels, because the original was so amazing. Once in a while, something will come along that is so universally reviled that a new version is doomed to failure, regardless of whether or not it's better than the original. Wait, if something flops horribly, why would you remake it? That sounds like a terrible idea. It'd be like me being like, oh wow, yeah, that video got 10,000 views. I should definitely remake that. Clearly a demand for it. Or maybe a product, while not perfect, is already so successful that there's no reason to risk alienating your audience by changing course. I'm looking at you, New Coke. But speaking of New Coke, Pepsi A.M. If you've never heard of Pepsi A.M, I haven't, Kevster, you aren't alone. The product was only available from August of 1989 through October of 1990 and only in test markets. It never received a wide release due to being a colossal failure, possibly based on the fact that nobody was actually asking for it. So what exactly was Pepsi A.M? Is this a Pepsi that you open the fridge and have in the morning? That's psycho, dude. Well, it was a lot like regular Pepsi. In fact, it was exactly like regular Pepsi. It was intended to taste exactly the same as the original, but with 25% more caffeine to give people that bit of extra oomph they needed to start their day. Wait, I'm completely down for this. Like, I would much rather drink a Pepsi than a Red Bull. It's just sometimes you need a Red Bull for the juice. I say it was intended to taste exactly the same because some taste testers felt the Pepsi A.M. tasted a bit flat. But aside from the added caffeine content, the formula was entirely unchanged. And that makes the question of why Pepsi thought a product like this was necessary in the first place. People are addicted to drugs, Kevin. Caffeine's awesome. Well, according to their research, the percentage of soda consumed in the morning had risen from 10 to 15% over the course of the 1980s. If people were increasingly willing to drink soda in the morning, it only made sense to target a new product aimed at the morning crowd. Why not just target at the crowd who love caffeine? Like this guy. That was their thought process, but it was ultimately a pretty dumb one. Like, you can follow their logic, but if you think about it a little harder, it should have been clear that Pepsi A.M. was doomed to fail from the get-go. Should it be clear, Kevin? I don't know. Like, doesn't seem clear to me. I'd buy this shit. Your internet activity is not as private as you think, and that's why you should be using Surfshark VPN just like me. With Surfshark, you can browse safely on public Wi-Fi. You can bypass geo-restrictions, which means you can get all of that Netflix content, which might not be available in your country, and whichever other streaming service you like. And definitely not the BBC, though. Definitely not the BBC. Because if you're watching BBC, you need a TV license, and it would be very, very wrong of you to use Surfshark VPN to access BBC iPlayer, tell them that you have a TV license, and enjoy their content. That would be wrong, and something that I definitely don't do and wouldn't recommend you do to access all of those fantastic BBC shows that are available in the UK without advertisements. You shouldn't do that. One account with Surfshark covers unlimited devices, and their no-logs policy means that not even Surfshark can see what you do online, which is nice and kind of the point. If they did, it's like, oh, no, your ISP can't see you, but we keep track. I mean, like, wait, I don't know if I trust you or the ISP less, but they can't even see it, so it's all moot. Get an extra 4 months of Surfshark for free. Just go to surfshark.com/blaze. That's surfshark.com/blaze. Stay safe on the internet. See all that extra content. It's just the way to go. It encrypts your traffic, blah, blah, blah. You've heard me talk about Surfshark before. If you don't have it, what are you doing? Go get it. Back to today's episode. For starters, people who wanted to drink soda in the morning were already doing so. Those people didn't need a special product since they were already buying Pepsi, or more likely Coke if we're being honest. But as for the added caffeine, even with 25% more caffeine, a can of Pepsi A.M. would still have about half the caffeine of a cup of coffee. Oh, okay, so way less than a Red Bull. Why not just jack up the caffeine content and be like, yo, this Coke Zero, same amount, or Pepsi Zero, no one gives a Pepsi Max, contains the same amount of caffeine as Red Bull. I'd be like, down, dude. Yeah. And it's in a big can. As such, the new product was unlikely to convert non-soda drinkers to their product as their new morning pick-me-up. Also, just that's psycho, dude. You don't want, like, cracking a Pepsi first thing in the morning is strange. It's the middle of the afternoon now, and I'm like, even it feels strange. I mean, I'd have a Pepsi now, of course, but, like, to have one so early in the morning, like, first thing when you get up, Feels a bit degenerate, to be honest. But perhaps the biggest downfall of the product was its name, Pepsi A.M. Even though the product was essentially an early energy drink, the name suggested that it was only meant to be consumed in the morning. This was a giant marketing fail, as it meant that nobody was going to buy the product in the afternoon or evening. Besides, what exactly was Pepsi's goal here? People were already drinking more soda in the morning than ever, so why not just ride that wave of success? Well, Kevin, because sometimes you just want to ride the wave faster. You're on that wave, you're like, this is a good thing. How can we go faster? Pepsi A.M, yes! And he's been drinking too much Pepsi A.M. Did they want to shift people's drinking habits so that Pepsi would replace coffee as a traditional morning drink and 90% of soda consumption would take place in the morning? The first part was never going to happen. The second part's incredibly stupid. You want people drinking soda all day, not just a few predetermined hours of the day. If Pepsi had doubled or tripled the caffeine content and called the drink Pepsi Max Energy, there we fucking go, or something like that, it might have succeeded, but absolutely nobody was looking for a version of Pepsi made exclusively for the AM hours. Look, this is all very easy for us to criticize now, because Red Bull and energy drinks are basically ubiquitous. They are ubiquitous. Why? I don't even need to say basically. You get more energy drinks than you do get regular sodas these days, it seems. But the point is, they didn't know about this. Like, energy drinks weren't popular in the 80s, were they? Fyre Festival 2. Remember, this is also a scam, right? Allegedly. Remember how Fyre Festival went down as the greatest, most luxurious, and most successful concert experience of all time, hosted on a private island previously owned by Pablo Escobar? If so, then you probably need to take a cognitive test to check your memory skills, because that is emphatically not what happened. Danny wrote an entire episode about the original Fyre Festival, and it was an unmitigated disaster that resulted in the event founder and organizer, Billy McFarland, being sentenced to 6 years in prison in order to pay $26 million in restitution. Wow, who would have thought our script about that would lead to such outcomes? But that first festival was all the way back in 2017, and holy shit, was that 8 years ago? Wow. He's out of prison! He's almost out. He's finally out of prison! And he's currently planning to recreate the music festival that never was by hosting the sequel that nobody asked for.
My dream is finally becoming a reality.
That's right. As of February 2025, tickets are currently on sale for Fyre Festival 2. I guess Billy f***ing liked jail. There are 4 different tiers of tickets ranging from $1,400 to $1.1 million each. At the time of writing, all of those $1.1 million tickets have sold out, though I'm not clear how many were originally available. There's no fucking way. What are you getting for $1.1 million?
We are selling the experience of Fyre.
You're literally buying like a part of the island. That package also allows the ticket holder to bring 8 guests with them, so it's really only a little over $100,000 per person, which is a bargain when you think about it. Who the is buying this? Billy isn't making the same mistakes he made last time either. While the original Fyre Festival was filled with lies and fraudulent claims about who was performing and what was being offered, this time, Billy isn't really involved in those decisions. He's hired outside firms to handle things like ticketing, organizing, and booking talent, and it seems like he's mostly just the PR hype man for the event. You've chosen the PR hype man for the event is the man who failed doing the original event to such an extent that he went to prison for 6 years. I mean, holy shit! Oh yes, and since there were a lot of lies surrounding the first festival, the companies Billy claimed to have been partnered with did confirm they were partnered with him for the event, so that part is real, at least. That's great and all, but what does $1,400 get you at the Fyre Festival? Well, wouldn't you like to know? I mean, seriously, we have no idea. According to their website, Fyre Festival 2 is an electrifying celebration of music, arts, cuisine, comedy, fashion, gaming, sports, and treasure hunting, all set on the stunning location of the Isla Mujeres in Mexico. Now, that's a lot of specific and disparate things to claim will be taking place, and yet none of that is confirmed to be actually happening. In an interview with The Today Show, Billy said,
"We might have a professional skateboarder do a demonstration. We might have an MMA champion teach you techniques in the morning."
When pressed about his use of the word might, and if any of those things were for sure booked, the short answer was that no, they weren't. Billy's learned his lesson. He's like, last I went to prison for 6 years, so now it's like, no, we got an MMA guy coming to teach people moves. Allegedly.
Fyre.
That interview was a couple of weeks ago, but at the time of writing, there still aren't any acts confirmed for the event. Yet Billy seems to view this as a positive. He wants to sell Fyre as an experience and believes that it can be the first festival to sell out without having any talent booked. That's certainly a position he's allowed to take, just like the majority of people are allowed to take the stance that this is absolute fucking lunacy. The first Fyre Festival was such an epic disaster that it spawned 2 documentaries and a Broadway musical. No shot. At least it allegedly spawned a musical, but the Broadway show Fyre Festival 1.5 was being developed by Billy, so there's a good chance that will never actually happen. And speaking of things that will never actually happen, according to the Mexican government, that list includes Fyre Festival 2. Local governments issued a statement that nobody had applied for permits for the festival, and the hotels that were allegedly partnered to provide rooms for the event had no idea it was taking place.
What is going on?
Currently, the official stance of the Mexican government is that Fyre Festival 2 is not a real event that exists. Something I'm sure Billy wasn't thrilled to see making headlines. No doubt, Billo. But hey, maybe he'll prove us all wrong. Maybe the festival that's scheduled to take place in just 2 months from now. Dude, you booked no one. It will be a huge success despite having no permits, no performers booked, and no accommodation reserved. It's certainly not impossible, but to say I'm skeptical would be a massive understatement. Billy liked prison. I suppose it's not like things could go worse than the last time, though, since the original luxurious Fyre Festival featured soggy mattresses inside FEMA tents, dry cheese sandwiches, porta potties, and not enough of them, and no water. Oh god, what a train wreck. Or at the very least, it can't go worse for the attendees. Billy was only sentenced to 6 years in prison last time, but if he pulls the exact same shit again, you best believe it's gonna go worse for him this time around. And he already did 6 years in prison for like a financial crime. It's bad, dude. Segway S-Pod. We talked about it before on this channel, but the Segway was supposed to revolutionize not just transportation, but the world. It was endlessly hyped for months, maybe even a full year, and we were all left with bated breath as we anxiously looked forward to what this reality-changing device would be. On December the 3rd, 2001, the world got its very first look at the Segway personal transporter, and it was an incredible moment. For perhaps the first time in human history, people of every race, colour, and creed united with a single voice to declare, wow, that thing is lame as f***. And they were correct to do so because Segways are in fact stupid. It's kind of Segways are still around. There's a Segway store in Prague selling Segways.
Really? Wow.
No, okay. Really? And they're like 8-9 grand. It's the price of a small car. These dumb little used cars are expensive. These dumb little scooters never really caught on, aside from some very niche markets like Segway tours and mall security. Although Segway Inc. has managed to remain afloat for the past 2 decades, despite making a product that pretty much nobody wanted, in 2020 they finally discontinued the classic personal transporter. Oh, they did? Okay. Now they focus more on things like traditional scooters, electric bikes, and go-karts. Sounds kind of fun, to be honest. They may not be as revolutionary as the Segway was, but at least they're products that people actually want. But what if they could relive the glory days of 2001? What if Segway could introduce a new form of transportation so ludicrous, so impractical, that it would leave the entire world wondering, how the f*** are you still in business, Segway? It's a good question, isn't it? Enter the Segway S-Pod, the eventual spiritual successor of the original Segway. Not because it functions in the same way, but because it is something that is just as unappealing to the general public. The S-Pod is essentially just a chair on wheels, but it is not a wheelchair. The target demographic for these machines is the able-bodied, not people who actually need wheeled transportation to get around. Ah, I see. So you've gone for the market of lazy people. At least it's a large market. It almost looks all like the chairs that humans rode in the movie WALL-E, except balanced on wheels instead of just floating in the air. And unlike a normal electric wheelchair that has 4 wheels on the ground, allowing you to sit and shift your weight as needed while rolling around, the Segway S-Pod has only 2 wheels. To avoid tripping over while in motion, it will tilt and realign the chair to move the passenger's center of gravity. So while falling over shouldn't be a problem in most cases, this was a needlessly complex solution to a problem that didn't exist in the first place. Just like the original Segway. It's like, oh no, I've done so much walking today. If only there was a way that I did have to walk that wasn't a car, or public transportation, or pretty much anything else. If there is any theoretical advantage to the S-Pod, though, it would be its speed. The S-Pod is capable of reaching speeds of 40 kilometers an hour. Holy shit. Something that I'm sure will not feel at all terrifying while driving along in a precariously balanced chair. Most people will never achieve those speeds, though, as the majority of their units will have speeds capped at a modest 12 kilometers per hour. Yeah, but this is one of those things like electric bikes, where it's like, yeah, it goes 12 kilometers an hour. Except if you look up online how to unlock it, or you take it to a shop and a guy unlocks it for you, and it's like, hey. And of course the manufacturers know this, allegedly. And there's absolutely no way that end users would reverse engineer that shit and figure out how to disable the speed cap within 3 days of it being released to the public. But hey, maybe I'm wrong and there will be within days, not 3 days. Are these being released to the public? Sorry, I just completely misread that as 3 days, but it hasn't been launched yet, I guess. But hey, maybe I'm wrong and there will be an unprecedented demand for the S-Pod. I guess we'll just have to wait for the official release date of late 2020 to find out.
What?
I mean the middle of 2021. Well, they haven't actually announced a new release date since then. Guys, it's been 5 years. It's been half a decade. Maybe their research team realized that nobody wanted this, so they decided to scrap the project entirely. Well, yeah, I believe that at a regular company, but this is Segway. That's what they specialize in. Woodstock 99. The original Woodstock in 1969 is often remembered as a celebration of peace and love, where 500,000 people descended upon a little festival to enjoy the biggest musical acts of the day and share a truly once-in-a-lifetime experience. And if anyone tells you that they were there and that's how they remember it, they are lying about being there. Obviously, I wasn't there either, but the actual survivors of Woodstock describe it as a miserable experience. They may be happy to have personally experienced such a culturally important event, but the event itself unequivocally sucked. Thanks to some permitting issues, the location was changed at the last minute to a venue that was wholly unprepared for what was going to be taking place. There weren't enough toilets, medical tents, or medical personnel, and most importantly, there wasn't enough food or water. It was a wet, muddy mess. Oh yes, and there were also 2 deaths and 8 miscarriages at the event as well. God damn. You might say that was all worth it to experience 3 straight days of the biggest musical acts in the world. Death is not, to be honest. But that wasn't actually who was playing. A few of the bands were already immensely popular, but it was mostly no-name bands who only exploded in popularity after, and arguably because of, Woodstock. 25 years later, the concert promoter from the original Woodstock tried to recapture lightning in a bottle by hosting Woodstock 94. This event is often forgotten because it was pretty good with few major controversies. There was still copious amounts of mud everywhere, to the point that Nine Inch Nails incorporated it into their set. The bassist for Green Day was also covered in so much mud that security couldn't tell him apart from random fans, so one tackled him, knocking out his teeth. Holy shit. But mud aside, it was an overall chill and peaceful, except for the Green Day bassist, and peaceful event with lots of good music from a lot of different genres. There were even performances from artists who were at the original Woodstock as well, such as Santana, one of the bands. Holy shit, how old is Santana? I didn't realize Santana was that old. One of the bands that wasn't actually popular before the first Woodstock. Realistically, nobody had wanted or needed another Woodstock, as it seemed like such a defining cultural moment that it couldn't possibly be reproduced. But it went surprisingly well. It didn't come close to achieving the same level of cultural importance, but at least this time the people who attended actually have fond memories of it. And that brings us to Woodstock 99, when the organizer Michael Lang decided to give it another go, and this time, it was an unmitigated disaster. There wasn't any mud this time around, at least, but only because the concert was held on the asphalt of an Air Force base in 80-degree temperatures and higher. That's going to be extremely unpleasant. There were a lot of things that went wrong, most of which were related to cutting costs. The organizers resorted to subcontracting out food vendors, but the contracts gave full control of pricing to the vendors. This meant the concert started with $4 bottles of water, about $7.50 today, and by the third day of the concert, when resources were getting scarce, the price increased to $12 a bottle. I stand by. I don't know why no one does this. Probably because it's slightly unethical. But at a concert, right? There's a beer tent. And everyone's queuing for the beer tent because everyone wants beer. And maybe there's a few beer tents and all the beer's the same price. Why not just have one where the beer is more expensive? They should just have, or just several. It'd be like, okay, regular beer, $5. You can go queue and the beer is $5. But over here, you can get beer for $7. And you might think, why the fuck would I get the beer for $7? And the thing is, there will be people who just don't want to queue and pay the $7. Like they'll just be in the $7 queue. And then maybe there'll be a slightly longer queue for the $7 one than the $10 one, the $20 one. It's just supply and demand, I think. Why doesn't this happen? There also weren't enough toilets, as might be expected, which led to a lot of dudes doing their business just wherever. It also caused septic pipes to back up and leak out. While it was obviously extremely gross on its own, it got so much worse. The line for the free drinking fountains was entirely too long, so people broke one of the pipes to provide hydration for people halfway down the seemingly endless line. The water from the broken pipe then mixed with dirt to create mud. And remember all of that leaking excrement I mentioned earlier? That all made its way to a little mud pond where it mixed together. A number of concertgoers were unaware of this, so they covered themselves in the wet mud as a way to attempt to remain cool in the unbearable heat, resulting in a number of illnesses. They're just rubbing themselves in human feces.
There's shit everywhere!
The entire vibe was way off from the other Woodstocks as well. All the music was much more angry, with acts like Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Insane Clown Posse. By most accounts, the major tipping point was when Limp Bizkit performed their song Break Stuff, causing people to turn violent. Isn't this where they famously said break stuff? Actually, we want you to break as much shit as possible. Just break stuff. Go nuts.
I had no idea there was anything negative going on at all.
And I get it. If I saw Limp Bizkit performing live, I would want to get violent too. Yeah, I don't know. Don't like Limp Bizkit. Just Limp Bizkit are nothing to me. The only person I'd want to assault would be Fred Durst, because Limp Bizkit sucks so goddamn much, but I'd still be angry. It's like Red Hot Chili Peppers.
What?
It's like it's kind of like a nothing. And no, in fact, Red Hot Chili Peppers are actively unpleasant to listen to.
You sound stupid!
Limp Bizkit, it's just I don't think I ever have to listen to them. But Red Hot Chili Peppers, you'll sometimes hear them on the radio and you'll be like, oh yeah. Wait, why are these guys commercially successful again? Oh yeah, and there also wasn't really any security. Rather than hiring actual security guards, Lang just used a temp agency to hire a bunch of rando teens to wear shirts that said security. Few of them had any interest in working as security, with many just treating it as a free admission to the show. Some sold their spare security shirts to other concert goers, and others used their perceived position of authority to extort sexual favors from female attendees. How's that work? You're a fake security guard at a festival. There were by no means... So, what the fuck? What's wrong with people? They were by no means the only ones acting that way either, as discussions of Woodstock 99 are filled with conversations about all the violent sexual assaults that took place. Oh my god, I'm just remembering this now. That was a big issue. Weren't there like allegations and stuff? I'm not going to get into specific details of things that happened, since this is a brain blaze, but it was unforgivably bad. The only good thing about Woodstock 99 was that it finally ended, though not at all the way the promoters had intended. Throughout the day, an anti-gun activist group had been handing out candles, and they planned to hold a candlelight vigil for the victims of the Columbine massacre. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, oh fuck man, Limp Bizkit and Red Hot Chili Peppers were the final act to take the stage, and they played a cover of Jimi Hendrix's song Fyre. Poor Jimi Hendrix, he's rolling in his grave. Red Hot Chili Peppers covering Jimi Hendrix. It's like, oh my god, that's horrible. Poor Jimmy. As an homage to the closing act of the original Woodstock. It's not homage, it's an insult, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Please, please stop making music. Naturally, the audience took this as a signal that they should all light their candles and burn the entire place to the ground. Bonfires immediately broke out in the crowd, with people then spreading out to torch all the vendors that had spent the last 3 days price gouging them. There was absolutely no reason for there to be a third Woodstock event, especially since there was no reason for there to be a second one. I mean, corporate greed is the reason, but the point still stands. Woodstock 99 will forever be remembered as 3 days of violence, rioting, and sexual assault, a far cry from the defining cultural moment of the original. That started getting a little dark, though, so allow me to lighten the mood by quickly throwing out some more sequels nobody asked for, in case this episode does well enough to warrant a sequel. World War II, the financial crash of 2008, the war on drugs, the crypto bubble, every subsequent outbreak of the Black Death after the first one, RFK Jr. Fuck RFK Jr., man. That guy's crazy. Fuck him. And most importantly, Yoko Ono's second through 22nd albums. That's right, Simon. Yoko Ono has 22 fucking music albums. Music albums. Oh my god, Yoko Ono. Fuck you as well. Fuck you and the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Limp Bizkit. Fuck you all.